welcome Gianni to my channel, and it's been great. I never thought that I will be taking your interview in my entire life, since you have been more like a mentor to me, and I think in my career those 5 years while I was in GfK, those were the best years in terms of learning.
Well, I was also very pleased when you joined Bausch& Lomb, and I was sorry when you decided to move on, actually. But yeah,
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
can say that we've worked together in two companies, so we know each other for quite some time.
Right, right. So of course, of course.
I'll try to keep it short because it's going to be boring otherwise. Well, to make it simple, I come from Milano, in the north of
Yeah.
Italy, and now I've been in Tokyo for more than 5 years. And
Okay.
my education has been a bit international. I studied a bit in London, a bit in Boston, United States, and in Ireland at Trinity College. All business studies, arriving at the end with my MBA. And
Okay.
after that, I also became a charter marketeer through the Charter Institute of Marketing in the UK. And recently, I took a kind of MBA refresher through Columbia University. This was actually sponsored nicely by Bausch& Lomb, my company. And what else can I say? I basically lived in terms of business in three industries. I started in domestic appliances many years ago, so brown goods
Mm.
and white goods, televisions, washing machines, these kind of things. Then I had a very important period in the automotive coating industry. So we're talking about the paints and solution for car companies. And that company at the time was called PPG, and they were owning the majority of Transition, the photochromatic lenses. And in
Right.
fact, my transition then into this industry is somehow related to that. I became a retailer and an important retailer. I was very privileged back then for Salmoiraghi & Viganò. Today is part of EssilorLuxottica Retail Group, one of the
Right.
biggest retail chains in Europe, and working very closely with many brands, but of course working closely with Transition. So that connects all the dots. I was there for a few years until the moment in which I was approached by Nielsen-GfK for a global role to manage the whole optical and eyewear and vision care business. When I started, we were a small business, a small team, and I tripled the size of the business and the team. When I finished 6 years ago, we had arrived to 28 countries, covering from North America all the way to Japan, um, all Europe, Eastern Europe, Middle East, and South America. So a real global business. And they gave me a lot of visibility and understanding about the industry. And then I was very happy when one of my global clients, Bausch& Lomb, offered me a very important role in Asia to become the managing director or president, whatever you want to call it, for Japan, and after that also for Northeast Asia. This is what I've been doing for the last more than 5 years. So this is in short the story, which basically means that when it comes to our eyewear and optical and vision care industry, I've seen it from three different angles: as a retailer, as a consultant, and now as a manufacturer. So I have seen it 360 degrees. Salmoiraghi & Viganò was an independent company, was then acquired by Luxottica, and then today became an EssilorLuxottica business. It was a very big chain. In my days, he had more than 500 stores all around Italy, and
500 stores only in Italy.
all in Italy. Yeah, yeah. Was the number one retailer at the time in Italy. Yeah, and selling all the optical products, of course. So spectacle glasses, lenses, sunglasses, and contact lenses and solution. Also some small accessories. So these were very interesting days, and they gave me a real understanding about the mechanism, and also something that I learned, which was very useful. I learned to think how a retailer This was extremely important and relevant for me in the rest of my career in Nielsen-GfK and in Bausch& Lomb. So I have been since then travel all around the world and met hundreds of retailers, of clinics, and I've been talking to many, many people in this industry for many years. Then, of course, when I moved to Japan and I took the job in Bausch& Lomb, clearly I concentrated on running the business. So it was a different angle. Uh, but let's say that there are a lot of interesting things happening to this industry, which maybe we can quickly summarize later on.
Right. So, sir, I wanted to know. So, it's like being you are in the industry from like about 15, 16 years. So, how you have changed means how you have seen this whole retail or even B2B changing within the eyewear space, and especially after a couple of online players coming in and a merger of Luxottica and Essilor happening. Do you see that things have changed in last 5, 6 years a lot?
Well, let's say that just to say something which is probably something not very original these days, but I want to say that COVID has been an accelerator of trends which were already happening in the industry. Uh, now, so let's start a little from one step back. One big thing about this industry is the fact that basically industry operate in eye care, which basically means to provide some visual aids for patients. Basically means you can do either with spectacle glasses or you put contact lenses or you need to have a surgical intervention. Okay, so these are pretty much the ways. And of course, this is based on the kind of patient's problems to the eyes. So myopia is clearly the big one, and I've been now in Asia, and myopia has been the one of the big emerging trends here. Well, let's say that myopia and diabetes have been growing double digits in Asia for many years. So and today there are a lot of investments and a lot of talks about myopia control. But in addition to that, we cannot forget also stigmatism and presbyopia. Now, what is interesting is that when we talk about myopia, there is a lot of competition between spectacle glasses and contact lenses. Where I'm sitting in Japan, Japan is one of the markets in the world with the highest penetration of contact lenses. Uh, when you start moving to more specialty segments like astigmatism and presbyopia, this is where it starts becoming a bit more complex to prescribe and fit these products to a patient. And at the same time, there is a lot of technology which helps the optical store to prescribe and fit spectacle glasses. So today there's still a big gap in the penetration of contact lenses in toric and multifocal segments. And what is very interesting about this is that clearly presbyopia, for instance, is something that happens typically when somebody is over 40, which basically means at the peak of his career, at the peak of his spending powers. And one of the challenges for companies like Bausch& Lomb, all the companies operating in this industry, Johnson& Johnson, Cooper, Alcon, etc., is exactly to increase the penetration of contact lenses in this segment. So contact lenses, especially in Asia, are used for from young people in terms of color lenses, cosmetic lenses, and then spherical lenses for myopia. Less when it comes to toric and multifocal. And the solution remains pretty much spectacle glasses. Another thing which is very important is the fact that there is a big difference between for a retail store to sell spectacle glasses or contact lenses, because when you sell spectacle glasses, you make 100% of the return on investment. So you spend some time with a consumer or a patient, he decides to buy the product, and you make 100% of the gain. Whereas when you sell contact lenses, it's more like a contract for the future. But today, what is happening is that there are a lot of alternative, how can I say, opportunities for consumer to buy contact lenses. So they may go to a clinic or to an optical store to get the fitting and to get the first purchase. But then maybe they get attracted by offer from competitors, retailers, or maybe they also decide to go on internet. This has been an accelerator during COVID, and today we see that there is an increase in subscription model from retailers and manufacturers to try and secure the business with patients across a long period of time. This is something which is not new because it's been done in Europe and around the world for a few years, but now it's definitely become a big challenge and a big opportunity all around the world.
Right, right. Right. So, even so, you have traveled across world during GfK times also. So, do you feel that the contact lens industry was growing, and after COVID, has it come down, or is it like stabilized?
Well, let's say that in this, from this respect, I can speak a lot from my Japanese and my Asian perspective because I was here during COVID. So, what happened was that COVID impacted the consumer behavior in general. So people started traveling less to go to the office. They start working more from home. So today's we are doing video conference like it's natural. But until some years ago, it was less common. Okay, people were taking more flights and do less video conference. Today, everybody makes video conference. Now, the fact that a consumer tended to have a more cautious approach towards visiting stores or visiting clinics had a direct impact. So people start privileging convenience and safety. So they started to look at the internet as a very comfortable way to purchase from home what they need, as opposed to visiting a clinics, having chair time, sitting with a doctor in an environment that at the time was considered to be not safe. But at the same time, of course, people need to do all the shopping, so grocery shopping, etc. So on the OTC side, even during COVID, that part of the business being very well, very performing very well. So, for instance, solution for contact lenses are normally sold in a drugstore, in supermarkets, etc. And they did not really have a very bad negative impact during COVID because patients were visiting these places to buy a surgical mask, sanitizing products, food, etc. And they were also purchasing OTC products. So it's been quite interesting.
Do you find that the since means I'm coming from a background where within India I feel that number of chains and national players and multinationals are coming up with their stores within India, so that's why smaller opticians are having difficulty in matching up to the business and the kind of business those guys run. So a similar trend is also happening in Japan, Australia, and all also, where independents find a bit difficult running businesses and competing with chains?
This is a very difficult but very relevant question because I remember when I started many years ago in this industry, uh, individual independent optical shops were still, how can I say, the majority, representing the majority of the market.
Right.
There were a number of chains, but of course, these used to be different across geographies. So there were
Correct.
some markets, maybe like Germany or UK, with already very developed chains. But even in Italy, where I was, even though there were both national chains as well as cooperatives and buying groups, etc. But the concept of independent optician was leading. Uh, of course, we have seen in the last 10 years a progressive growth of organized distribution, so of chains, international chains, local chains, and the business of independent optical shops has been a bit struggling. Of course, there are a variety of reasons for that. Clearly, economy of scales is also very important. I remember when I visited Australia many years ago, and I delivered a conference in Sydney, Sydney, Australia, and a lot of people ask me what independent clinics could have done to protect themselves from the arrival of international chains. And Australia is an example in which, especially one international chain entered and disrupted a market which, in terms of distribution, for many years was based on independent clinics. And then suddenly you get a more aggressive, more structured approach with marketing, trade marketing, price promotion, etc. And of course, this proved to be a bit complicated for optical stores. So this is a topic which has been around for many, many, many years. Uh, when it comes to Japan, just to spend 2 words about Japan, because I've been here for more than 5 years, this is quite a unique market because in addition to optical chains and independent clinics, here there is another phenomenon which is not very common around the world. There are retailers specializing in contact lenses and solution for contact lenses. Around the world, there are some chains selling only sunglasses, and it's very easy to find those when you travel in around the world in airports, Sunglass Hut, Solaris, etc. But in Japan, the market, the industry of contact lenses is so big that it can actually sustain structured chains only selling the product. So I think that if you compare this with other markets, for instance, India, where you are, but I don't know, Europe, anywhere, it's unthinkable to have optical stores without spectacle glasses, which represents more or less 75% of the business. So Japan is quite a unique market in this respect. Yeah.
Good. Do you also see that trend of online happening in Japan also? Is it like really big, or people prefer going to physical stores?
Okay, if I look at the region that I work in the last few years, which is Northeast Asia, we see different things because, for instance, if you look at Korea, Korea, uh, it's there is a strong legislation which prohibits selling contact lenses online. So in Korea, it's basically not possible, even though then everything is always possible in the world. Anyway,
Okay.
so Korea is a no way market, but also in Hong Kong and Taiwan is not easy. So there are kind of ways around the typical order online and collect offline from retailers. So this tends
Okay.
to be the formula. When it comes to Japan, Japan is a bit of a peculiar case because it's one of the most sophisticated advanced market. Is highly medically controlled by the authorities. It's controlled still or influenced greatly by doctors, by clinics, but there is not a clear legislation about prescription. So you can basically buy products on internet, and usually, like it happens in many places around the world, there are some internet website that require you to send the prescription. Other can do just a self declaration, and this is very common all around the world, by the way. But internet has definitely been growing, especially during COVID. Yeah.
Okay. You have traveled so many countries, Gianni. Which one is the best country which you like, where you would like to live? I think Japan was one of them you mentioned once while in
Oh yeah,
GfK. If I'm not wrong.
I must say that I come from Milan, and as I said before, I spent many years of my life in Europe, in England, in Ireland, and in Italy, and I was always very, very interested in Asia
Okay.
because the economy in Europe is quite mature, and Asia has been for many years the place where things were happening, economies moving very fast, and I've always been very attracted. So I spent a lot of time, as you remember, in my Nielsen-GfK days, traveling Asia, opening markets, etc. And when I got the opportunity to actually come here full time, I was extremely privileged and honored. So it's been a great run. However, I must also say that I've been here more than 5 years, and I think it's time for me to move on to the next challenge. So I'm currently considering where is going to be the next challenge, in which direction. Could be back in Europe, it could be somewhere again in Asia, could be Middle East. Oh, by the way, all places where I've been in my life, as you know, where I've worked. Because during my days, I was recently thinking I deliver conferences in Brazil multiple times, in Milan, in France, in Istanbul, in Dubai, in India, as you remember, in Hong Kong, in Australia. So really, I had the chance really to meet and travel all around the world and meet a lot of very interesting players in this industry. I met some amazing retailers. There are amazing example of retailers in Asia, in Indonesia, in Japan, anywhere, in Mexico. There are many, many examples of fine retailers, not to mention, of course, the big groups like Essilor Luxottica, which where my previous company now is based. So yeah, let's say that the retail has evolved a lot in this industry, and it's very very interesting. Yeah.
Right, right, right. And you still like chicken tikka masala, or you prefer Japanese food now?
Gosh, you remember?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
I
the good
remember.
chicken tikka masala, but I am very picky on the wine, as you know.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I remember that you made me taste Indian wine, and I know that the wine industry has done many progresses in India, but I'm
Yes,
still very traditional, I must say. Even in
I
Japan, there are a lot of investment recently on wine, but I still think that when you think of wine, you need to think of Italy, uh, France, Spain, then and South America. But yeah, there is still it takes many years. It takes many years to really create a culture. Yeah.
correct,
But
correct.
I start enjoying sake. Of course, I'm not an expert, but I've been traveling all around Japan and tasted many kinds of sake. And I must say, sake, it's very, very interesting. Yeah.
What is sake? If you can just briefly tell, is it like made
Oh,
out of
sake
rice
comes
or something?
sake comes from rice, and it's not
Right.
produced only in Japan. It's produced also in other parts in Asia. But Japanese
Okay.
sake is very famous. There are a lot of small producers, and because the water is different, the rice is different across all the region of Japan. The flavor are very different, and you can get it very smooth. You can get it a bit fruity. You can get it very dry. I like it very dry, by the way, and especially let's say it's very famous on the side of the Sea of Japan, so in the direction towards Russia or North Korea, like in the area of Niigata or Ishikawa Prefecture. There are a lot of sake, but there are also very good in Kansai, in the Osaka, Kyoto area. So pretty much everywhere. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
Wherever you travel around the world, you find very good food, I must say.
Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. Correct. So, do you want to share, because I didn't recorded the initial 5 6 minutes? Do you want to share that why you lost 20 kg weight with the larger
Oh,
audience?
oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Let's say that when, especially during the first wave of COVID, I and it was not really possible to do much. You could go to the office. We always went to the office. Always went to the office, but you were spending time at home, and the gym was closed. Everything was closed, and I tended to react in a not very healthy way. So I had a lot of food, a lot of drinks during the first wave, the first lockdown. So when we got to the second and the third one, I learned the trick and I decided, okay, let's take the opportunity to get fit. Also because I was looking forward to getting married. So I
Okay.
started treating myself very healthy, and I started doing physical exercise, and I discovered also a very special food in which is very popular here in this part of Asia, which is called cognaco. And
Yeah.
cognaco is almost no calories, and it can also come in the form of noodles. So you can imagine that pasta. I love pasta, Italian pasta, 350 kilocalories for 100 grams,
Yes.
whereas uh, shirataki pasta, which is made of cognac, is only 5 calories for 100. So 350 versus 5. So it's very easy to lose weight like that. Yeah.
Great, great, great to see you so fit, Gianni. So great, Gianni. So I would like if you want to share some kind of inputs from your end to.
Okay, thank you for this question. So let's talk about a couple of micro trends in the industry which we haven't mentioned until now. One is really more for global companies in principle, which is vertical integration. Uh, this industry has been, we can define it in the checkout phase. It's
Okay.
approximately close to maturity, but it's not maturity yet. And there have been a lot of acquisition, a lot of integration, not just a company by a competitor, but also companies buying retailers or website. And well, Essilor, Luxottic are, I would say, the most clear example of this. So vertical integration has been one big phenomenon which is happening still at all levels. Uh, it's very common to read from the big companies some announcement about something that happened, some acquisition or some kind made.
Right.
And this one phenomenon which is going to stay still for many more years. Another one which is very important is the one about, let's call it private labels or trade brands. This is something that, if you recall, we've been observing for many, many, many years in GfK. And I remember coming regularly to Japan, for instance, which has always been a market with a strong presence of trade brands in spectacle glasses, in spectacle frames, but almost no penetration in contact lenses. And I remember keep warning my clients at the time, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. So the fact is that even in Japan now, private labels also for contact lenses are happening. And this is pretty much the same thing which is happening also in Korea, everywhere. So this is also a natural reaction that retailers have versus internet. As I mentioned before, subscription model is one way to protect yourself, to defend the traffic in your store, not to retain clients, not to lose patients. But another way, of course, is to switch the patient from a brand to your own personal brand. And this is something that has been done for many, many years. It started in the UK, I remember, many years ago. And it's a phenomenon which is becoming bigger and bigger. So this is one way in which retailers and the local clinics can try to differentiate themselves, but at the same time can represent both an opportunity or a challenge for manufacturers. And especially when you are in eyewear, and you have still a big portion of your business going through your fashion brands, etc., this is something which is always particularly tricky. So the eyewear companies usually have fashion brands, their own house brands, and then they compete with all the local small manufacturers who produce unbranded, let's say, products which are sold and distributed pretty much everywhere. And Asia, it's a market where there are hundreds of those. When it comes to contact lenses, it's not that different because contact lens manufacturers, some are investing heavily on their brand values, so they don't do private labels. Others are very dynamic and very close to retailers to do private label. Others are a bit in the mix. But similarly to this, there is a growing offer of products coming from markets such as Taiwan, Korea, or other parts, which can offer
Okay.
private label to pretty much everybody, not just cosmetic lenses, but also it's possible now to have also normal contact lenses, and in some cases also some silicone hydrogel products. So
Okay.
it's this represents clearly a challenge for global companies, because the structure of this company is clearly linear. Of course, we are not talking about the same technology, the same research and development, etc., etc. But in terms of agility and possibility to sign some contracts with some specific local retailers, it's a different ball game. So as I said,
Right.
it's a very interesting industry with many competitive forces, and it's been an honor for me to be in this industry for so many years. First as a retailer, then as a consultant, global consultant, and in the last 5 years as a manufacturer. And now I am very excited to look for the future. And I really don't know where this is going to take me, but I'm always interested in anybody giving me a call.
Okay. Great, great. Great, Janice. Great, great, Janice. It is always nice talking to you, and great that you shared such a lot of insights about the industry also. And I hope soon you will share what you are doing next.
You will be one of the first to know, of course.
Okay, great. Oh, great, 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 Gianni.
So,
Thanks.
thank you very much. By the way, I haven't been in India for a few years, I'm afraid.
Yeah, yeah. I was
And
about
I
to
hope
say.
I will have the chance to come again in that amazing part of the world. But yeah, with COVID and everything, and again, as you know, my business in the last few years has been concentrated in Japan and Northeast Asia. So not many chances to come on that side of the world. But who knows? Let's see.
Right, right. Okay, Gianni.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Gianni.
much.
Thanks for your time. Thank
Arigato
you.
gozaimashita. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Thank you.